Hey guys. The link was being a little bit iffy. All right. So we are learning about persuasive essays today. So we've probably gone over in my class before. We've gone over this. Um, if you're not, it's okay. Or if you weren't in my class before, it's okay. Um, so we're learning about persuasive essays, right? So arguably, persuasive essays are some of the most important essays that you'll write because it's really important that we are able to not only support our side, our evidence, right? If you have a something that you're supporting, like let's say I'm supporting everyone switching to electric cars, right? I need to know information about electric cars. Otherwise, I'm not going to persuade anybody, right? So it teaches us to one, have information about things that we support. Two, it teaches us to consider the other side, right? Because when you're writing a paper where you're trying to persuade someone, you're going to have to think of counter arguments, right? You're going to have to think about, well, what would the other side say, right? If I'm writing that paper on electric cars, everybody should switch to electric cars. I might think, okay, someone that doesn't have the same opinion as me, doesn't think that we should all switch to electric cars. They might say something about how maybe electric cars, the batteries, they're really bad for the environment to be made. Or the US economy relies a lot on gasoline and petroleum. So everybody switching to electricity could hurt the economy, right? These are the opposite side. And by doing so, I'm able to kind of listen to what they would say or consider what they would say. And sometimes when you do that, you're like, oh, wow, that sounds kind of interesting, or I didn't think about that, right? It also prepares yourself to make valid points, right? You want to talk about the most important points in your persuasive writing. You know, you don't want to talk about the unimportant stuff because that'll just bore them, right? It's not going to persuade anybody. So we have an article here on how to make your writing more persuasive. So we're going to take a couple of notes, right? First one is keep it simple. If you present the information in a complex way, you are more likely to confuse your readers. You can't persuade them if you confuse them, because they'll usually quit reading before you ever made your case. All right. I don't know why it kicked us out. But in any case, we're back. All right. So first one is keep it simple. Okay. If your essay is confusing, they're not even going to try and read it. All right. I'll just give up. Second, Be consistent. When people are faced with inconsistencies, they tend to get skeptical and lose trust, both of which are huge roadblocks to persuading someone. So as you're editing, it is important to find and correct any inconsistencies in your writing, right? So basically what they're saying when they say be consistent is, if I start out my paper, we'll just use the same example. I think that if I think all cars should be switched to electric, right? We'll use that example still. When they say be consistent, that means that I have one point of view of this, right? I think that we should switch, right? So then in my essay, I shouldn't be switching back and forth. I shouldn't be like, electric cars are good, but also gas is good, right? Once you pick what you're talking about and your point of view, you got to stick to that. You got to be consistent, because as soon as you start changing, then people are going to be like, well, what about before? When you said this, or what about when you said that, right? And it makes you look not credible, right? It's the same as what if a teacher tells you something and then they change what they say later, then you're like, whoa, I don't know if I really believe you now, right? So be consistent. Next, show empathy. So empathy, not to be confused. I'll show you guys the official definition. So empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of others, right? So in life, there's going to be times where you don't agree with people, but you can show empathy by saying, okay, we disagree. I'm willing to listen to what you have to say, and I understand that you have a different viewpoint, right? That's showing empathy. If you're asking the reader to take action, there's a good chance they're trying to solve a problem. That's where empathy comes in. For example, people buy aspirin to alleviate headaches. Generally, you shouldn't avoid writing about the problems you're helping to solve. It's not about being cruel or manipulative. It's about showing the reader you understand. Persuasion requires trust. It's hard to gain trust without empathy. In other situations, your readers are trying to solve a problem. They're trying to receive some benefit. For example, they're reading a book because they hope it will be entertaining and educational. Don't be afraid to write about the benefits directly. It also requires empathy because you must see things from your reader's point of view in order to understand what benefits you want, as well as how you can help them get those, right? So if you're reading a paper, be empathetic. If you're reading a paper and someone is trying to persuade you and you have a view of them, right? You probably don't want them to be aggressive and, come at you and say, no, you're wrong, this is the way that it's supposed to be, right? That's not having empathy. Having empathy would be, okay, you don't agree with me. This is what I believe in. This is what you believe in. And it's okay if we disagree. Next is use proof. This is the most important part. People are naturally skeptical when someone is trying to persuade them. If you're asking people to make decisions or take action, they might not be convinced it's in their best interest. Ultimately, they're afraid of making a mistake and they're worried they'll regret the decision later. How do you deal with this problem? You present with proof. For example, you pretend you're a doctor trying to persuade a patient to try a new diet. What proof could you offer about the diet's effectiveness? You can give testimonials from other patients, right? So testimonials are personal stories. Another option is to show before or after photos that illustrate the results. The details will vary depending on what it is you're trying to persuade them to do. It's the same. You must provide proof to overcome your reader's natural skepticism. More compelling the proof is, the better chance you'll have of persuading them, right? So it's not enough to just say something. You got to prove it, right? So use proof. So proof is important because if you think about things like, let's see, the guy that discovered that the earth was round, right? He was like, hey guys, guess what? The earth is not actually flat, it's really round. And guess what? Also, the sun doesn't revolve around us, we revolve around the sun. Do you think everybody was like, oh, dude, you're right. Yeah, you're right. You're right. No, they're probably like, okay, prove it. How do you know this? Show us, right? That's using proof. So you can use statistics, stats, you can use stories, you can use things like before and after pictures. And last is use a call to action. If readers are interested in what you're offering, let them know what they should do next. The right call to action depends on what it is you want them to do. If you're doing a fundraiser, that might be making a donation.
Mr. Jordan,
Yes.
can I get some water, please?
Sure. If you're selling a product or service, that might be calling for more information or making purchases. Typically, a call to action will be placed at the end. So your call to action tells the reader, hey, if you support this cause, this is what you can do next, right? If you support all cars turning electric, this is what you can do next. You can sign this bill. You can go buy a Prius. I don't know, but that's just an example. All right. So the last one is a call. Use a call to action. All right. So what you guys are going to do is you guys are going to write your own persuasive essay. It's going to be a short one, only 2 pages. So your topic is, if you were running for president of the US, what would your campaign speech be? So you are going to write your own campaign speech. And this is the guidelines that you're going to use. So you're going to have a clear thesis statement, right? So in your first paragraph, it always ends with the thesis statement. That's what you believe, your whole point of the paper, right? So your thesis statement should be clear. It should be something like, doesn't have to be exactly the same as this, but something like, my name is Jordan, and if you vote for president, I will improve the economy. I will raise employment. I will lower homelessness, right? I chose 3 different ideas that I put in here, and then paragraph you talk about those ideas, right? So 1 paragraph I'll talk about how I plan on decreasing homelessness, right? I'll talk about how what was the second reason? Was it homeless? Oh yeah, I'll raise employment, right? Those are my main ideas. And it needs to be at least 2 pages, not too long. So you guys can already start on it. If you don't remember the outline or how we structure it, I'll type it out. So we start paragraph is our intro, right? So you start with your hook, your thesis, and then second paragraph. You talk about your first input. Last paragraph, of course, is your conclusion. That is an outline of what your essay should look like. So you guys can start. You can start now. You have the rest of class to work on it, and then you can submit it via Google Classroom, or you can email it to me. You see how I have Reddit open? Yeah, I was on Reddit earlier. You can also email it to email that I'm going to put in the chat. At Seashore. I was just browsing, just looking at the front page. / whoosh. It sounds interesting. All right, so you guys can go ahead and start. And you have until next class to turn this in. So this would be next time we have creative writing. Or writing skills, I should say, is tomorrow, last block. So you have all this time. You have a lot of time. It's not that. So you guys can go ahead and start now. And if you have any questions, you can go ahead and ask me, or you can ask in the chat. Yes, you have all day, but remember that you have other classes too. I'll add in down here ideas about what you could talk about. Tomorrow for some ideas that you could talk about. What else could you talk about? We could talk about education. What's another? Oh, you don't know how to get onto Google Classroom. Okay, let me see. I can get the codes. All right, guys, I put the notes in the Google Classroom. I'm sorry, I put the notes in the chat, a link to the notes, and then I will put them in Google Classroom as well for you guys, so you can go on there too in case you didn't get the notes. If you have any questions, you can email me or you can message me on Google Classroom. If you have any questions about what you should be doing or how to do this, just let me know. But you have the rest of today and tomorrow before the next class to turn it in. All right. So if you don't have any questions, you guys are good to go. Good job. We made it.
Goodbye, friends.